Good afternoon, everybody. It is Steve Lookner. We are here with some live U.S. and world news coverage. We're going to check out what's going on around the world. We're going to be taking your comments on the air. So you can write to me during the broadcast. At Lookner on Twitter is where you can reach me with your comments and questions. At Lookner on Twitter, we're going to be reading them on the air. And thanks so much to our moderators in our chat rooms. Oh, Nightbot is working. Good. Nightbot is working. Thanks so much to our moderators and Nightbot in our chat rooms who are moderating there. Much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, I first want to talk about a couple things I just saw. The last few minutes. One of them is there have been some reports of possible U.S. airstrikes in Iraq on Iranian-based. You can see here Elint News says reports of U.S. airstrikes on Iranian-based Iraq Shia militia locations in Iraq. Fatalities and wounded according to local reports. That has not been confirmed by the U.S. government. This would not be. This has happened before. The U.S. has attacked these Iranian-backed Iraqi militias before. So Iranian-backed Iraqi militias are frequently accused of, for example, launching rocket attacks on U.S. positions in Iraq. So this would not be like a huge surprise if it happened, but certainly we'll let you know if I hear more. Elint News says, everyone, this isn't going to start a war with Iran, calm down. Yeah, I mean, the U.S. has attacked Iranian-based Iraqi militias before. That has happened before. So this is, it's not like a huge surprise that this would happen. This kind of thing has happened before, but there's no confirmation yet that there have been U.S. government strikes. So I will certainly keep an eye out and let you know. Elint News also reported 14 minutes ago, they said an intense flight of U.S. fighters over Iraq and the Iraq-Syria border being reported. So who knows? Maybe there was some certain target of opportunity there that the U.S. is attacking. I don't know. We don't know if it's not even confirmed that this is a U.S. airstrikes, but would not be surprised. So if I hear more on this, I'll let you know. But been seeing some reporting about that. Also, one of the outlets I follow. Which one was it? I'm trying to think. One of the people I follow posted something from an Iranian media outlet. Let's see here. Aurora Intel says dubious of the photos. This is why things remain unconfirmed. Press TV, which is an Iranian outlet, I believe this is affiliated with the government, Press TV. They had said, Press TV said casualties reported after airstrikes hit Iraqi forces positions in Iraq. But, we'll have to see if that, what more reporting there is on that. Press TV is an Iranian state-owned news agency. Okay. So that's going on. I'm going to keep an eye out on that. I'll let you know if I hear more. You can write to me on Twitter at Lookner. Hey, thanks. But this is not like some huge, surprising, completely new development or something. Hey, thanks, Mr. Showtime, for your support. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. All right. So there's that. There's another story I want to get to, too. Let me do that. Hang on a second here. Hang on. Okay. It's getting some chat stuff open here. Okay, so this was really interesting. I just saw this right before I came on the air. I just saw this right before I came on the air. Reuters is reporting that President Trump is going to lift COVID travel restrictions on Europe, UK, Brazil. Reuters. U.S. President Trump will rescind entry bans for most non-U.S. citizens who recently were in Brazil and much of Europe starting on January 26th. Two officials briefed on the matter told Reuters on Monday. Now, I don't know why this is. Like, I don't know what would have changed. I mean, it seems like the only thing that's really different is that the virus is worse in places like Europe. Like, it's worse in Europe than it was at any time, in 2020, I believe. It's certainly, I've heard some really bad reports from Brazil. So I don't know what has changed such that, you decide, let's lift. If you thought the travel restrictions were good before, then why is it changing now? So I'm confused by this. Reuters had first reported in November that the administration had been considering lifting the restrictions. After the restrictions are set to end under a new proclamation from Trump the same day that new test requirements take place for all international visitors. The restrictions have barred nearly all non-U.S. citizens who within the last 14 days have been in Brazil, the UK, Ireland, and the 26 countries of the Schengen area in Europe that allow travel across open borders. Again, I'm not telling you whether it's a good or bad policy. What I'm saying is, I don't know what would have... If the administration thought this was a good policy before, what's changed to make them think that the travel restrictions are a bad policy now? That's my question. Last week, the head of the CDC signed an order requiring nearly all air travelers to present a negative test or proof of recovery from COVID to enter the U.S. So is that part of it, that there's now going to be some kind of negative test requirement? Now, this is interesting. Airlines had hoped the new testing requirements would clear the way for the administration to lift the restrictions that reduce travel. It sounds like maybe there's this. Airlines, it also says the airlines pressed the administration about it. So is this something where the airlines are saying, we want to have more of these flights? So it certainly seems like maybe the argument would go, well, since they're now going to be requiring people to get tested when they come to the U.S., it's okay. I don't know if that's the case. I'd be interested in hearing, some epidemiologists talk about all of this. But it's certainly interesting to see this, order reportedly being given now. There's no statement yet from the White House on this. Again, the only one I know who's reporting this is Reuters. Elizabeth G. says one test before travel means nothing. I mean, again, I'm not telling you whether travel restrictions are a good or bad policy. But, again, I guess maybe their argument's going to be like, well, we have a test requirement now, negative test requirement, so we don't need a travel ban. But as our viewer just said, I don't know how rigorous these negative tests are going to be. Present a negative test. So, are you just going to have to hand a piece of paper to somebody, or are you going to have to take a test at the airport? I don't know how that's all going to work. How this is all going to work with the negative test requirement. So it's interesting to see that this is being, reportedly going to happen. See if I can find out anything more about it. Yeah, Reuters is the only one reporting it now. Kathy Wickman says, why do it when you have 48 hours left in office? Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, it seems, I mean, it's interesting that it's like this is coming out like less than 2 days before he's not going to be president anymore. And it hasn't even been issued yet. It hasn't been done yet. So if it's going to be done, it's going to be done, very closely before he leaves office. Hey, thank you, Angel Shark, for your support. Much appreciated, Angel Shark, one of our mods. Thank you. Let's see here. CRT says it's the timing that's weird, obviously trying to make things hard for Biden's. Mira says hopefully Biden will rescind that before it takes effect on the 26th. I mean, again, if the White House is going to do this, what I would expect is some kind of detailed science-based argument for why their policy is changing. Now, Andre points out if you're just relying on testing people or have somebody having a negative test, there can be false negative tests, but also, you can have, it usually takes a number of days between the time you get a virus and the time you test positive for the virus. So you could in theory test negative and still be giving other people the virus. If my memory is correct. I'm sure I can find you something about that. Here, look. I mean, there's articles about this. Here's one from CNN. Don't get a false sense of security with COVID testing. Here's why you can test negative but still be infected and contagious. If you think a negative test means you don't have the virus, you could be wrong. It can take days before a new infection shows up on a test. Dr. Leanna Wen said, we know the incubation period for COVID is up to 14 days, and before that you can be testing negative and have no symptoms, but you could be harboring the virus and be able to transmit it to others. So, if for example, if you're relying on airline passengers coming in with negative tests to make sure that they're not going to spread it to anybody, that's not a good way to do it. This article is from November 3rd. A study in this medical journal examined false negative tests. The study estimated that during the 4 days of infection before symptoms typically started, the probability of getting an incorrect negative test on day 1 was 100%. The virus takes time to replicate in the body to detectable levels, said this expert. Evidence suggests getting a test before the 3rd day after exposure is not of much use. Could I be contagious while testing negative? Absolutely. One reason, so anyways, we'll see if there actually is that announcement by the White House that they're rescinding the travel restrictions. I wonder if it's an airline industry thing, because at the bottom of this article it does say that the airlines have been pressing. Airlines had hoped the new testing requirements would clear the way for the administration to lift the restrictions that reduced travel from some European countries by 95% or more. Yeah, SC Lady, we mentioned this. The CDC signed an order requiring nearly all travelers to present a negative test or proof of recovery from COVID to enter the U.S. starting on January 26th. So again, I would be interested in seeing, in terms of the advisability of travel restriction policies, I defer to like the public health experts on that. All right, I've only seen the Reuters report. I've only seen the Reuters report so far. Katie Beth says, could this be a weird response from Trump because Biden is lifting the Muslim country ban? I don't really see the connection. I don't really see the connection there. I mean, President Trump has been pretty consistent about pushing for fewer restrictions. But who knows? We'll see what the White House says, if that actually happens. Oh, are we going to have to restart? We might have to restart the stream. We might have to restart the stream. We might have to. Because it's, again, the YouTube automated hide everything bot has hidden the stream, right? We might have to do it on Agenda Free TV 1, honestly. Because it's getting crazy with the YouTube automated bot just hiding everything and then unhiding it a day later. I'm going to have to restart the stream on YouTube. I'm going to have to. So again, just to explain this, YouTube during the pandemic has this automated system, which what it's supposed to do is flag content which is likely violating YouTube rules. And then they'll have a human take a look at it and make sure. But the system is utterly broken. So what it does is it flags all kinds of live streams like this, which are clearly in no way violating YouTube rules. And then it takes up to 24 hours for a human to look at it and say, oh, our dumb system made a mistake. And then when it's flagged, it's completely hidden from search, and it's also hidden from people's subscription feeds. So subscribers to the channel can't find it. People just looking for news coverage can't find it. No one can find it. And they just keep doing it again and again and again. And it's just, the system's utterly broken. And it's not just my channel. It's all kinds of channels doing all kinds of programming, all kinds of live channels. And they don't fix the broken filter. And also, it would be the easiest thing in the world for them to fix the issue. All they have to do is just, when a stream gets flagged, just any YouTube employee anywhere at home could just look at the stream and say, oh, well, clearly this is not violating the rules. This is fine. But they refuse to do it, and it just wrecks live streaming for everybody. So I think I might have to do it on the other channel, because this is like a relatively new channel. So it just seems like everything I do on this channel, eventually gets hidden, and then it gets unhidden the next day. I've never had something get hidden and then not get unhidden. So again, it's ridiculous. It keeps happening. I have talked to their customer service countless times. I never get an adequate response. They never acknowledge the system is broken. The only response they ever give me is they say, well, during the virus, our workforce is reduced. And it's like, well, first of all, that doesn't acknowledge that your flagging system is just broken and just flagging all kinds of live streams. Like, what is it about this live stream and other kinds of live streams, like people playing video games and stuff that get hidden, that would cause your system to flag it? The other thing is, again, even if your people are not in the office, it'd be very easy to just email an employee at their house and say, hey, could you look at this stream? But they just don't do it. So again, it's not, you can watch the stream, but it's invisible from search. It doesn't come up in search, and it doesn't come up in people's subscriptions fees. So subscribers can't find it. So again, it's not in my subscriptions feed, and it's not on search. Oh, I just saw it. It's here now. It's here now. Now it's here. Now I see it in my feed. I just saw it in my feed. It wasn't there before. So we can keep going. For the moment, we can keep going. It is in my feed now. I checked 2 minutes ago and it was not there, and it's now there. All right, well, for the moment, we'll keep going on YouTube. For the moment, we'll keep going. I'm sure it'll get hidden in like 10 minutes. Before, it was not. I checked before and it was not there. Well, now it's there. So we'll see if it stays there. I don't know if they heard me. But this is an ongoing issue with many channels, many live streamers, since the start of the pandemic. So anyways, we'll keep going, and then if it gets hidden, we'll do something else. But it's just incredible. And they refuse to even really acknowledge the problem. Okay, hang on, folks. Hang on. All right, let's talk about some more news. Oh, by the way, I do want to just check in on that whole CDC testing requirement. So this is the new CDC requirement as of 6 days ago. CDC expands negative test requirement to all air passengers entering the U.S. The CDC is expanding the requirement for a negative test to all passengers entering the U.S. Testing before and after travel is a critical layer to slow the introduction of COVID. Okay. Before departure to the United States, a required test combined with the CDC recommendations to get tested 3 to 5 days after arrival and stay home for 7 days. See, but they're not enforcing this. Some countries, they enforce this stuff. Some countries, you go to the country and they test you and then they make you go to like a quarantine center for the right amount of time. And you're not allowed to leave. This is all recommendation stuff here. Air passengers are required to get a viral test within the 3 days before their flight to the U.S. departs and provide written documentation of their lab test result, paper or electronic copy, to the airline, or provide documentation of having recovered from COVID-19. So if someone wants to fly to the U.S., they can literally get a paper copy of a test. And I'm going to guess the CDC is not sitting, I'm guessing the CDC is not really spending a lot of time verifying people's paper copies of their tests. Now, I'm not telling you whether this policy is a good policy or a bad policy. My point is just that it doesn't seem like a very strict policy to require somebody to get a test if you accept a paper copy and you're not really checking it. Is the CDC calling up a doctor of somebody in Belgium and saying, hey, doctor in Belgium, by the way, your passenger your patient wants somebody who works with you, a patient of yours, wants to fly on our airline, and they gave us this paper copy of their test. Did you really give them this test, doctor? I can't imagine they're really doing that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is this policy, I guess, changed like a week ago, and it's supposed to take effect on January 26th. So my point is, this doesn't seem like I don't think this is a huge change in policy in the sense of, I feel like if people want to fake it, they probably could. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm certainly not encouraging people to do that. But if that's the case, then it doesn't make that much of a difference. And I'm bringing this up because Reuters is reporting that President Trump is going to lift COVID travel restrictions on the Europe, UK, and Brazil. He will rescind entry bans for most non-U.S. citizens who recently were in Brazil and much of Europe starting on January 26, two officials told Reuters. And a possible reason given for this in this article is that, well, the CDC now has this new testing policy. So we'll see if this actually happens. Okay. We'll check in with that in a little bit. Another thing I want to talk about, what is this? The New York Times has some new reporting on the pardons thing. So President Trump is going to issue more pardons before he leaves office. There's been some different reports about it. We were talking about one last night. A CNN report said he was going to issue about 100 pardons. I have not seen this article yet. This is some new reporting. Trump prepares pardon waive for final hours. So let's see what the New York Times is reporting. Among those under consideration for grants of clemency are the former New York Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver and the rapper Lil Wayne. The article is missing a lead paragraph. It just starts by saying those under consideration. For what? Those under consideration include such disparate figures as Sheldon Silver, the disgraced former New York Assembly Speaker, and the rapper Lil Wayne. Rudy Giuliani says he does not expect one, and Steve Bannon's chances seem to have dimmed. Mixed in among the big names, low-level drug offenders are under consideration. President Trump has spent days sifting through names and recommendations, assembling a list officials say he intends to disclose tomorrow, his last full day in office. The size and precise composition of the list is being determined, but it is likely to cover at least 60 pardons or commutations and perhaps more than 100. Already, Mr. Trump has been making calls to some of the recipients, reports the New York Times. People briefed about them said, and he held another meeting about the topic on Monday afternoon. There are no plans for Mr. Trump to issue a pardon for himself. We'll see if it happens. It's not clear if he legally could pardon himself. It has never been tried by a president. There are no plans for him to pardon himself or for him to preemptively pardon his two adult sons. One question I have, though, this says pardon himself on the list to be released on Tuesday. Does the president have to announce all the pardons? I thought I had read an article at some point that said the president could, in theory, pardon himself and then not announce it. And then if push came to shove, if he was charged with somebody, he could hold up his piece of paper and say, look, I pardoned myself. Let me see if I can find this. Oh, here's something here. Time.com from 2017. Democrats are worried President Trump might pardon people in secret. Can he do that? Let's see here. The short, could Trump really pardon someone in secret? The short answer, in theory, yes. The president doesn't need approval for anyone else in the government to issue a pardon, and can even pardon someone before they've been formally charged with a crime. This is from Time magazine. The regulations governing, in general, pardons are vetted by the Office of the Pardon Attorney in the Justice Department, but the regulations governing that process don't interfere with or supersede the president's constitutional authority in this issue, which mentions nothing about needing to notify the public of a pardon. The Constitution doesn't say that the public needs to be informed of pardons. So I'm not sure of it, but let's see here. There's a historical example, blah, blah, blah. This says, if the recipient of a presidential pardon were indicted, the pardons would be revealed during the proceedings. The way a pardon could stay under the radar is if Trump pardoned someone before they've been charged with a crime. In that case, that person could have a presidential pardon in their pocket to use if they ever get charged with a crime, but if they aren't, the public wouldn't necessarily ever know. So I've seen articles like this that say, that he doesn't have to publicize every pardon. So when I see the New York Times say there are no plans for Mr. Trump to include a pardon for himself in the list to be released on Tuesday, well, could he just pardon himself and then not publicize it? And then if he ever gets indicted federally, I mean, I wouldn't, if he's allowed to pardon and not publicly release the list, he might just figure, well, why don't I just write down on a piece of paper, I pardon myself for blah, 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 blah. And then if he ever gets charged, he can hold up the piece of paper and say, this is signed before I left office. Now, it's illegally, it's not clear legally whether a president's allowed to pardon himself, and many experts believe it would be ruled unconstitutional. But anyways, he could do it for his family too, in theory, if it's private. If he's allowed to keep it private. But this says there's no plans for Mr. Trump to include a pardon for himself on the list to be released Tuesday, or for him to preemptively pardon his two adult sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, neither of whom has been charged with wrongdoing. But Mr. Trump's ultimate decision about pardoning himself and members of his family, they said, could remain an open question until noon on Wednesday, when he leaves office. Some of the pardons and commutations are likely to go to people whose supporters say they were given disproportionately long sentences or subject to other miscarriages of justice, or who have proven themselves rehabilitated. Jared Kushner has been working, I assume this is Jared Kushner, has been working with Alice Johnson, blah, 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 blah. But Mr. Trump has also already made clear his willingness to use his clemency power on the behalf of allies, supporters, and people who he perceives as victims of prosecutorial overreach, and people who forge connections to him and his team. Lil Wayne is being considered, a Trump supporter who pleaded guilty last month to having illegally carried a gold-plated .45 caliber Glock handgun and ammunition as a felon while traveling on a private jet. He faces a sentence of up to 10 years. Another person under consideration for clemency is Sholom Weiss, the recipient of what is believed to be the longest ever white-collar prison sentence. Mr. Weiss was sentenced to more than 800 years in prison in 2000 for racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering related to an immense fraud scheme. Mr. Weiss's supporters argue his sentence is an example of the so-called trial penalty, where prosecutors offer less prison time in exchange for guilty pleas, then pursue much lengthier sentences at trial to punish those who turn down such deals. Okay, anyways, so there will be pardons announced. There will be pardons announced by President Trump. I am confident of that. We don't know who he's going to pardon. What do you think? At Lookner on Twitter. InfoWarrior says, I expect Trump will pardon Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse, is he facing local charges? Presidents can only pardon people for federal crimes, not for local, I guess it would be state crimes or county, if you're charged in your state or your county. I guess it would be state law. So you had to be charged with a federal crime. The pardons only work for federal crimes. Let's see here. Legal proceedings. Yeah, he was charged in Illinois. He turned himself in Illinois, Wisconsin state law. So I believe he's facing state charges. There's nothing that can be done about, the president can't do anything about that if he's facing state charges. I think he's facing state charges. But yes, you can. Ari Mar is wondering if Madoff will be pardoned. I don't know why President Trump would want to pardon Bernie Madoff. L. McFarrell says, can Trump pardon himself for previous year's tax evasion? Well, it has never been legally tested whether a president can pardon him or herself, but a lot of experts think if a president tried to do it, it would go to court and the president would lose, but it has never gone to court. But a president can pardon people for crimes they haven't even been charged with, as long as they're federal crimes and they've already happened. A president can't pardon somebody for future crimes. So in theory, if he were allowed to pardon himself, he could pardon himself for all federal crimes committed up to this point. But it's not clear that he could do that. Maggie Haberman reports, people close to Trump org had wanted preemptive pardons for Trump's older sons, believing feds would increase scrutiny going forward, but White House lawyers advised against it. Donald Trump Jr. told associates he didn't want one because he doesn't think he needs it. Void Moon says presidential pardons are a matter of public record and are listed on the Office of the Pardon Attorney website. But again, I've seen a number of articles that have said that they don't have to be public. Doesn't this article mention that website? It says here, this is from Time. In general, pardons are vetted by the Office of the Pardon Attorney in the Justice Department, but the regulations governing that process don't interfere with or supersede the president's constitutional authority on this issue, which mentions nothing about needing to notify the public of a pardon. This is another one. Where is this from? Congressional Research Service, it says. CRS. Can the president issue secret pardons? Another question occasionally raised. I guess this is Congressional Research Service. It says, is whether a president can issue pardons without informing the public. In a certain sense, the president appears to have the authority to issue a pardon that is not officially made public, a secret pardon. While the president might issue a secret pardon, the recipient will ultimately have to produce the pardon in order to reap its benefits. Now, is this really from CRS? It says CRS reports. But it's not really totally clear where this is from. But oh, this says Federation of American Scientists. No, look. Presidential pardons, Congressional Research Service. I think this is. It's not the right document. Anyways, I've read a number of things that have said that the president could issue a secret pardon. Hey, thanks, by the way, to Chippy Neal for your support. I appreciate that, Chippy Neal. Thank you. Thank you, Chippy Neal. Rambo says, can an incoming president nullify a pardon? No. AFP is reporting it too. AFP now reporting it too. Trump lifts COVID travel bans on much of Europe, Brazil, starting January 26. So that's a second outlet reporting this. Reuters had reported it before. Hey, let me just say a quick thanks to our moderators. I really appreciate it. They are awesome. They're all volunteers. Let's thank our moderators. We have, right now, Angel Shark, Mark Helton, Sarah Joy. We also have Nightbot in our YouTube chat. Misha is moderating. Thank you, Misha. Texas Legends Brian is moderating in our Periscope chat. Thank you. John says, may I ask why you are obsessed with pardons? I'm obsessed with pardons? Because we did a segment on it in my news wrap-up show. That means I'm obsessed with pardons? Interesting. Thanks also to our Facebook and Twitch moderators as well. Give it up for them. On Twitch, we got Maddie, Mags, and Tariag. Thank you. We're going to talk about the story about the South Africa variant shortly. No, there's no proof that the South Africa variant does not respond to vaccine at all. That's not true. Thank you, Bud Green and Roxanne Betke, who are moderating now in our Facebook chat. Thank you. Also, thank you, Alicia Rivera, for the Facebook stars. Thank you, Alicia. And also Rachel Rizal. Thank you, Rachel. And Patty Huddleston Looney Thank you, Patty. And Manuel Antonio Cardona. That's very kind of you. Appreciate the Facebook stars. Thank you. Oh, the announcement came out from the White House, I think, about the travel ban being lifted. Here, look. President Trump has issued a proclamation lifting COVID travel restrictions, barring entry to the U.S. of foreign nationals from the U.K., Ireland, much of Europe, and Brazil, effective January 26th. So this has been officially issued. It says, for immediate release, it says, in the wake of the unprecedented outbreak of COVID in the U.S., I took action to suspend and limit the entry of aliens, non-citizens, recently present in certain foreign jurisdictions where significant COVID outbreaks have occurred. These jurisdictions, including China, Iran, the Schengen area, a lot of countries in Europe, the U.K., Republic of Ireland, and the Federative Republic of Brazil. Wait. Hold on a second. I want the whole statement. I'm trying to find the whole statement. Where's the whole statement? She posted some of the statement. I can't find all of it. Let me just show you the rest of it here. This says, Sarah Cook posted this. It says, no. It's not much of a statement. Again, that's the basic idea of it. Lifting travel restrictions, barring entry to the U.S. of foreign nationals from the U.K., Ireland, much of Europe, and Brazil, effective January 26th. But I haven't seen the whole statement yet. CRRC says he's trying to sabotage. Melissa McQueen says, is this the 4D chess? Hey, the Reuters report was right. So that happened. Hey, thank you, Millie Medina, for your support. I appreciate that, Millie Medina. Thank you. Thank you. For the coffee sticker. Okay, there's something else I wanted to mention. There you are, Perry thinks he is trying to force Biden to redo the ban. So again, Reuters had said that airlines had been pushing the administration to do this. So is this is it something to do with President Trump wanting to help the airlines? Shar, our viewer, says, I am mind blown. C. Swigum says it's the only industry that hasn't shunned Trump. Well, I'll keep an eye out for more on that. Okay, I want to talk about this other story, which I think is important. I think it's quite important. So here it is. There's some new data that's come out about the South African variant. I believe this is the South Africa variant. 501v2.v2. Let me just make sure. Is this the South Africa one? Yes. BBC says South Africa coronavirus variant, what is the risk? The South African experts concerns, the virus changes all the time, but experts are concerned in particular about a small number of variants. One is the South African one called 501v2. Now, Adam Kucharski, who's a mathematician, epidemiologist at, what is this, London School of Health? Is that what that is? London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Okay. He says that preliminary data from South Africa suggests the new South Africa variant wasn't recognized by antibodies in roughly half of serum samples collected from people infected in the first wave. Worth watching today's presentation. And he says, what else did Adam Kucharski say? Sorry. So basically what happened is they did this study where they took a bunch of people who had already gotten the virus and then they took serum from those people, right? So they took a sample, serum is part of the blood, is it not? With the antibodies in it, serum. So let me piece together what they did here. It separates out when blood coagulates. So I believe the serum would have the antibodies in it. So basically they took serum samples from a bunch of people who'd already had the virus. And I think what they did, if I'm reading this right, I think what they did is they inserted the new variant of the South African variant into that serum to see what would happen. And in about half of those people's serum, the antibodies, which is, I believe, is one of the two ways that the body would fight off the virus. One of the two ways is with antibodies. The antibodies didn't recognize the new South African variant. So, so the concern is that the big concern with any of these new variants, or one of the big concerns, is that the vaccines won't work on it, and also that people who had gained some degree of immunity from having a different strain of it, that immunity wouldn't work on this new strain. So, obviously, it wouldn't be good if you had the virus last year and then you developed antibodies. And the antibodies would work if you got the exact same strain. But if they don't work on other strains, that's not good. Also, if the vaccine isn't working on a new strain, that's not good. On a new variant, that's not good. So what this doesn't say that the vaccine won't work, but what it's evidence to suggest that it's a piece of evidence which suggests that that perhaps the vaccine won't work as well on this South African variant. Also, perhaps people could get reinfected with it if their antibodies that they produced when they initially had it don't recognize this new strain. So he's saying, and Christian Anderson posted this, he's infectious diseases and genomics. He thinks this is not good news. And he says, this does not change our need to get the vaccine into as many people as possible, even if there's immune escape. Having some immunity is likely much better than having none. Can't overemphasize that point. I expect we'll learn a lot from South Africa and Brazil in the coming days and weeks, both in terms of prevalence of reinfections with new variants and their severity. So, it's just this specific thing is about, this specific piece of information is just that, again, antibodies people were producing who had already had one strain of the virus were not recognizing this new strain. That doesn't mean the vaccines won't work. Also, in this video, I watched some of the video, it didn't say that they'd seen lots of reinfections, right? There'd be a worry that if your antibodies that your body learns to produce when it first gets the virus, if they don't recognize a South African strain, well, there's a worry that lots of people who had the virus last year wouldn't get it again with the South African strain because their body wasn't immune to it. So again, it's not clear. It's just what you'd like to see is evidence that the antibodies produced by people when they first got the virus also would prevent them, would recognize this new variant. So again, it's a concerning piece of news, but there's lots of research being done on, whether new strains like the South African strain are more likely to reinfect people, whether the vaccines will work just as well on them or somewhat as well or not that well. That's all being researched. So I wouldn't overreact to this, but it's a concerning piece of data according to these experts. Daniel says, would the testing required to enter U.S. not detect this new strain from South Africa? I don't know how this affects the testing. I have no idea. Christian Anderson said, this is a problem many of us have been concerned about. Immune escape from a new variant in addition to their increased transmission, in this case, a quick single evolutionary jump. When he means immune escape, he's talking about how a new variant could, people, in theory, most people, when they get the virus, develop a certain degree of immunity to getting it in the future. Also, if you take a vaccine, that can give you immunity to getting the disease, to getting sick. But to a great degree. But he's worried when you talk about immune escape, I believe, is when you have a new variant that the previous immunity doesn't work on. Immune escape. Let's see if I can find a definition here. What is immune escape? Basically evading the immune system or evading something to that effect. Immune evasion strategies. I don't see a clear definition of it anywhere. So, anyways. And I obviously, I am not an immunologist. I am not a specialist. I just do see some specialists expressing some concern over this new data. Did Adam Kucharski say anything else about this? What did he say? But this does not show that the vaccine won't work on the South African variant. It does not show that people can definitely be reinfected with it who've had a different variant before. That has not shown that. But there's going to be more research on this stuff. Let me try to get you some more information on that. Yeah, Kai Kupperschmidt Kupferschmidt, who writes about science stuff, science journalist. He's good. I follow him for COVID stuff. He says today's presentation from South Africa on the second on 501Y.V2, the second variant of concern, in case you've lost count, is very interesting. Regrettably, it only adds to concerns about potential immune escape from this variant. He says when convalescent sera, so basically they took blood serum from 40 people who had gotten affected in the first wave, and they introduced in those 44 blood serum samples, they stuck the new South African variant into those samples. It was confronted with the new variant. Antibodies from 21 of the 44 people's samples did not recognize the new variant. Important to remember that our immunity is not just due to antibodies, but also T cells. So fingers crossed that T cells will be able to fight off the new South African variant. There are other caveats. Vaccine-induced immunity may be very different from natural immunity, for instance. This is just one data point, but as is so often in the last weeks, I would have preferred different data. So he's just saying, can't draw huge conclusions from this, but it's a concerning piece of data. I retweeted that earlier if you want to see the actual video and the more specifics on it. Hisenburn says, does the vaccine work on the new South African strain? We don't know. We don't know. This is being researched. Undead Caesar says it's always something. See if I can find anything else about that report today. Now, this is an article from today. Reuters, scientists have new biological evidence, that the so-called South African coronavirus variant binds more readily and strongly to human cells, making it more infectious. Reuters, previous infection with the virus. Oh yeah, this is what we were just talking about. Previous infection with the virus may offer less protection against the new variant first identified in South Africa, scientists said on Monday, although they hope that vaccines will still work. This is just what we were talking about. Studies also found the new variant binds more strongly and readily to human cells. That helps explain why it seems to be spreading around 50% quicker than previous versions, said a South African epidemiologist. Let's see. Convalescent serum studies suggest natural antibodies are less effective. He said, we talked about that. British scientists and politicians have expressed concern that vaccines currently being deployed or in development could be less effective against the variant. Scientists speaking at the virtual panel today said there was not yet a clear answer to that question and that studies were continuing. We have reason to be concerned because the virus has found a way to escape from previous antibodies, escape being detected by them, said a virologist at the Africa Health Research Institute. The world has underestimated this virus. This virus can evolve. It is adapting to us. Earlier, South African researchers said since vaccines induce a broad immune response, it is unlikely that the mutations in the spike protein of the variant would completely negate their effect. The researchers reiterated that notion on Monday. So again, this is a variant that definitely is worth looking at and watching. And, another whole thing that I was thinking about today that I'm particularly concerned with is, so people who get the vaccine, how long does that immunity last for? Right? We don't know how long vaccine immunity lasts for. And the vaccine protects you, gives you a great degree of protection, according to the data, from getting really sick, from the virus. How long does that last? Also, there's a question of how long it lasts as is. But also, the possibility has been raised that, like the flu vaccine, you might need to have to update periodically the virus vaccine, the COVID vaccine, because there are new variants. And so scientists can adjust the vaccine to recognize the new variants. The problem, though, is like, it's, put it this way. Let me explain it this way. Suppose that because of the vaccine and because of new variants, suppose that the vaccine gave you good protection for 6 months. Hopefully it's a lot longer than that. But suppose it's 6 months. Well, 6 months as of right now is not enough to vaccinate. I mean, at least in terms of the U.S., 6 months is not everybody in the U.S. is going to be, plenty of people are not going to be vaccinated by May or June. But then if you had to vaccinate everybody every 6 months, the problem is after 6 months isn't even enough to vaccinate everybody the first time. So after 6 months, if you have to go back and vaccinate people again, then there's going to be a whole chunk of the population that never got the vaccine to begin with and never gets it. Now hopefully it's a lot longer than 6 months. I'm just saying though, if immunity only lasts for a short enough time, then you're going to hit the point where you have to start over again, revaccinating people before you even got into the entire population getting it. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I hope that doesn't happen, because that would be really, really bad, obviously. It would be really bad if you had to keep giving people the vaccine so frequently that there was like a fair amount of the population that never even got it because they weren't in the high risk groups, and they would never get it because by the time they got it, they'd be getting the old version. So I don't know. I'm concerned about that. I hope it doesn't happen. We don't know how long the immunity lasts. We don't know how long the immunity lasts. We don't know how long the immunity lasts of the vaccine, even on the strains that it works on. But when you throw new strains into the mix, if you start having new strains where the vaccine doesn't work as well, then it seems that's another reason you might have to, update the vaccine. We just don't know. But remember, it takes, at least with the way these things are getting produced now, in terms of making all these things and getting them into people's arms, it takes a while. And then suppose immunity lasts for a year. Like the flu vaccine, there's a new flu vaccine that comes out every year. So suppose it's like that, right? But suppose it basically, like in the US, it takes a year to vaccinate everybody. Well, then you'll have a lot of people getting the vaccine at the end of the year, and they're getting this vaccine that is almost out of date. So Hopefully that doesn't happen. It is concerning to me that this is, especially when you start bringing in new strains. If the new strains, if the vaccine doesn't work as well on the new strains and the virus is constantly evolving, that's not a good thing. Soulful Music says, yes, it is a race. But it is not guaranteed. I think a lot of people think of the vaccine as like, oh, well, you get it once and then you're immune for the rest of your life. So eventually we give it to everybody and everything's fine. No, I hope it's that way, but it seems more likely that it only works for a limited amount of time, even if you don't have the new strains. And now you're bringing this possibility that you could have new strains developing the vaccine doesn't work on, and you got to redevelop the vaccine. Hisenburn says it will eventually become comparable to the flu shot. Well, but I don't, the flu shot needs to be given every year. And this is, it's more deadly than the flu, the virus is, the COVID is. So I don't know how long immunity is going to last for on it. I don't know. It's just I'm concerned about this stuff. Now maybe there'll be great developments in vaccine technology where like the new vaccines would be more powerful and work on possible variants that haven't developed yet and stuff like that. I don't know. So my big point is, don't assume. I would not assume, because I think about this. I want things to go back to normal. Believe me. I want things to go back to normal. And whenever I start thinking about, well, when, for example, will I be able to get the vaccine? When will I be able to, when will everything be open and there won't be worries about, getting sick if you go to these public places and stuff? Whenever I try to think of a date, I realize that there's, huge barriers to getting things back to normal. I'm very concerned about it. A lot of people thought, remember, it's in January. Remember how people thought about it last March? I think most people last March and April weren't really keeping up. They thought it's going to be a couple months. Lisa Renee says a few have contracted the virus after the vaccine. It's fortunately we haven't heard of that many reinfections yet. People who got it and then got it again. I hope we don't. Castro thinks life will never be the same again. I wouldn't sit here and think, oh, in June everything's going to be back to normal. And another big problem with this is that the current vaccines, they are designed to keep you from getting sick. They're not designed from keeping you from giving the virus to somebody else. It is not clear. It has not been shown that the vaccines prevent you from getting the virus in your body and giving it to somebody else. They give you a great degree of protection from getting sick. But where that's a problem is, suppose by take the US, suppose by May or June, half the US population has gotten vaccinated, okay? So great for them. They have a lot of protection from getting sick. But what about the other half of the population? They haven't been vaccinated, and even the people who have been vaccinated could, in theory, give them the virus, right? So if it's me, say I'm sitting here in August and I haven't gotten the vaccine yet, right? Even if I know that 2/3 of the people in the country have gotten the vaccine, if it's possible that they could give me the virus, I'm not going to be running outside if I haven't been vaccinated. I'm going to be like, well, all those people could still give me the virus. Pyomai says we can still be carriers. So, yeah, this is going to take a while. This is a while. And we don't know about the variants. What other new variants are going to come up? Okay. You are watching Agenda Free TV and Agenda Free TV 2. If you're watching on YouTube, I have two channels on YouTube, Agenda Free TV and Agenda Free TV 2. On the other platforms, I have one channel, Agenda Free TV. If you're watching on YouTube and you like this channel, you probably want to subscribe to Agenda Free TV 1, because this channel, I do a bunch of the news roundup stuff on this channel. When we cover like a single story, I do it on Agenda Free TV 1. That's the original channel. That's regular Agenda Free TV. So you might want to subscribe to that if you like this channel, if you like Agenda Free TV 2 on YouTube. I'm just, I want things to go back to normal, and I'm not seeing it anytime soon. I am not seeing it anytime soon. Norma says, I agree, this will likely take at least a year to clear up and catch up. Again, it looks like in the US, if you told me it's going to take a year to get everybody the vaccine, I'd believe you. But so at the end, so what happens? So suppose by the end, suppose it takes until December. Suppose it takes till December for everybody in the US to get the vaccine. Well, I have two questions for you. First of all, does the immunity start wearing off from the vaccine, right? Do people who took it in January start having less immunity because it's wearing off? Two, is the vaccine working on whatever new strains are out at the time? Ugh. Now, Beck points out if less people get sick, there is less spread, because in theory, if somebody, well, a couple things. So as Beck points out, if the vaccine keeps you from, Beck points out, if the vaccine keeps you from coughing and sneezing, that can help you from spreading the virus. So in that sense, it can. But on the downside, you have these new strains like the quote-unquote UK strain, the quote-unquote South Africa strain, which look to be way more, they transmit way more easily than the previous strains do. Elijah William Hall thinks, first of all, the son of summer will help. Well, I mean, you could get some, it's believed that this virus has seasonal effects. So when it gets warmer in a place, I mean, it's not going to go away in summer. It didn't go away last summer in the United States, for example, and in Europe. Maybe it'll help cyclically. The virus will likely mutate to a less deadly form over time. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's going to be a bunch of different mutations. But the UK strain and the South African strain are believed to be more transmissible and no less deadly. They're not less severe. Maybe you will get some less severe strains, but these new strains are not less severe. Our viewer Look Nerd thinks that media will become numb to COVID deaths like flu deaths. I don't know about that. I mean, COVID is a more serious disease than the flu. More people die, more people get hospitalized. Hospitalization on average is longer. Now, If it goes on for the long term, do people get used to it in a sense? I don't know. That's a good question. But it's not the same thing. Also, remember as well, our hospital systems are built to handle a certain number of patients, right? The current hospitalization system assumed, built into that, to its capacity, is the assumption that a certain number of people will get the flu. Hospital capacity, as is built now, was not built with this whole other new virus in mind. Oh, by the way, Ivan Woe sent me this. So this is from President-elect Biden's new communications head, Jen Psaki. She is in the Biden administration. Now, she released a statement. Oh, look. Biden team says Biden will not be lifting the travel restrictions. She says, on the advice of our medical team, the administration does not intend to lift these restrictions on 1/26. In fact, we plan to strengthen public health measures around international travel in order to further mitigate the spread of COVID-19. She says this is not the time to be lifting restrictions on international travel, with the pandemic worsening and more contagious variants emerging around the world. So the Biden administration will not be going along with President Trump's. He said he's going to lift travel restrictions on various people coming to the U.S. from various countries, right here. But the Biden administration is not going to go along with it. See, President Trump issued a proclamation lifting COVID travel restrictions barring entry to the U.S. of foreign nationals from the UK, Ireland, much of Europe, Brazil, and effective January 26th. That's from Sarah Cook. But the Biden administration is not going along with it. Here, look, right here. Shortly after Trump administration statement, Biden administration says it doesn't intend to lift restrictions on international travel. That's from Jennifer Jacobs. Yeah. So there you go. So whatever you think of the policy, it took about, within an hour of President Trump saying he was going to lift these restrictions, the Biden team has said, no, we're not going along with that. That post is from Josh Wingrove. Hey, you're watching our live new world and U.S. news coverage. We're bringing you live coverage. We're taking your comments and questions on the air. And also, if you want to write in, write to me on Twitter, @Lookner on Twitter. That's where you can reach me, @Lookner on Twitter. And thanks for the Facebook stars, Cecilia Sherrard. I appreciate that. And thanks to everybody who's donated. Your donations are what allows me to do these news channels that I do. So I really appreciate your support. If you do, and you are the ones who've allowed me to do this for several years now. So thank you for your support of my channels. If you do want to donate and help the channels, you can go to agendafree.tv, agendafree.tv. It's interesting how fast, though, the Biden team came out with that. Minutes Josh Wingrove says minutes after Trump's White House announced it. See, it's not a law. It's an executive pronunciation. So if it's just certain, if it were a law, then Congress would have to vote to change the law. But President Trump's, it was an executive order that he had issued. So a new president can just rescind that. Yeah, VF star. There's a number of things that there are a number of things Biden is going to do. Biden is going to rescind a number of the executive orders that President Trump made. So, for example, President Trump pulled the country out of the Paris Climate Agreement. That whether to be in the Paris Climate Agreement is not a matter of congressional law. Although I guess could Congress make a law about that? I don't know. No, it's up to the president to make treaties. Maybe that's why it's up to the president. Right? Isn't it? Now I'm confused about. So, anyways, though, Congress doesn't have to. It's up to Biden has the power to. He says he's like the day he becomes president, he's going to re-enter the Paris Climate Accord. So, there are certain things presidents have the power to do, and there's other things like Biden can't say I'm going to increase taxes by 20% or decrease taxes by 30% because Congress has the power of taxation. I don't know with the Paris Climate Agreement how Congress power is, executive power and the role of Congress in the Paris climate and nuclear. This is from Center for American Progress. Let's see here. Congress had no formal role in reviewing the Paris Agreement. Maybe it's why the different, although Paris had a role in the Iran nuclear agreement, why the different roles for Congress? Okay. So I'm not familiar with all of the constitutional law around this. There's certain things that Congress needs to be involved in, and there's certain things that Congress doesn't need to be involved in. The Paris Climate Accord, President-elect Biden can put the country back into the Paris Climate Accord without getting kind of like approval from Congress. So similarly, this whole thing with the travel restrictions, that's up to the executive branch. Dave NW says, I think Congress has to ratify treaties. I think you might be right about that, but at the same time, I'm not sure what counts as a treaty. Maybe the Senate ratifies treaties? Or is it Congress? I don't know. Yeah. The Constitution gives to the United States Senate the sole power to approve by 2/3 vote treaties negotiated by the executive branch. The Senate does not ratify treaties. I know what that means. The Senate does not ratify, it approves or rejects a resolution of ratification. Okay, anyways, it's a technical question. Elizabeth G. says, Paris Climate Accord sidestep Congress. I'm not familiar with all the law behind it. All right. Misfit, we've been on the air, I think, about an hour and a half so far. Hour and a half. Hey, thanks so much, TL, for your support. I appreciate that, TL. Thank you. And thanks, TL, for shouting out the mods. Thank you, TL. Bertie sent me this. It's a post from Trevor Bedford, who's is he an immunologist, scientist? He focuses on, he's like a COVID expert, I would say, Trevor Bedford. He says, the fact that we've observed 3 variants of concern emerged since September suggests there are likely more to come. I didn't read the whole thread. And thank you also to Dizzy Dale. I really appreciate it. Dizzy Dale, thanks for your support. And the sticker, Dizzy Dale, thank you. Oh, I don't know what's going on with this story. Some of you have mentioned this story. So, Rebecca Jones is this data scientist in Florida, and she had been fired after she said she was, she claimed that like when she was helping run the COVID dashboard in Florida, and she claimed that the state wanted her to massage the numbers to make them look better than they actually were, and she ended up getting fired. And then there was a raid on her house, a police raid like a few weeks ago, and now she turned herself in and she's facing charges of illegally accessing a state database. I don't really know what to make of all this. Let's look at the latest details here. This is from the Orlando Sentinel. Let's look at what they say about it. Rebecca Jones, the fired state COVID dashboard manager, faces a felony charge of illegally accessing a computer system, according to an arrest warrant issued by Florida Department of Law Enforcement. She faced a judge Monday morning who set the bot at $2,500. So I'm guessing she'll post bond and get out of there. The warrant alleges that on November 10th, Jones downloaded a file equivalent to between 600 and 700 sheets of paper containing contact information for about 19,000 Floridians. The file contained names, organizations, titles, home counties, as well as personal phone numbers and emails, the warrant states. On her Twitter account, Jones said the charge was retaliation for her criticisms of the state COVID response, and claimed the charge had nothing to do with the original search warrant at her home last month. They didn't find any proof of anything related to the warrant, so they invented something new to come after me for in retaliation, she said on Saturday. In a tweet Sunday afternoon, she said she may not be able to communicate with her followers after she turned herself in. The investigation began in November after Florida Department of Health reported somebody accessed the state's emergency alert system and sent a message to 715 employees, which read, "It's time to speak up before another 17,000 are dead. You know this is wrong. You don't have to be a part of this. Be a hero. Speak out before it's too late." The agency said that message was sent from an IP address that matched Jones' address, according to the warrant. Agents seized a desktop computer from Jones's home during the search, and a forensic analysis revealed she downloaded the file containing the information the warrant reads. But did she send out that message or not? That message was sent at 2:44 p.m. and data on the desktop shows she allegedly downloaded the data about 12 minutes prior. Evidence retrieved from a search warrant on December 7th shows Jones illegally accessed the system, sending a message to approximately 1750. I'm a little confused. A news release says, I got to check. Again, I don't know. When we heard about her, when her house got raided, the story was that the state was looking into whether she had sent this message to a bunch of people. It looks like she's not charged with sending a message. She's charged with downloading some sort of data file. So I'm a little confused about that. Nothing new on their Twitter from Florida Department of Law Enforcement about this. History Underfoot says, I'm confused too. Yeah, so I guess, again, she was arrested and charged, I guess, with downloading some data file. This is the first I've heard that she was accused of downloading some data file. See, she posted this yesterday. She said, this was a couple days ago, she said on her Twitter, Florida Department of Law Enforcement found no evidence of a message sent last November to Department of Health staff telling them to speak out on any of the devices they took, which she says was the entire basis for the raid on my home in December. The warrant was based on a lie. So she says that they've come up with something else to charge her with. However, police did find documents I received downloaded from sources in the state or something of that nature. It isn't clear at this point what exactly they're saying I had that I shouldn't have had, but an agent confirmed it has nothing to do with the subject of the warrant. Anyways. You can read her tweets if you want. It's a confusing story. Flatfoot says it's very confusing. Soulful Music thinks she had too much bad factual news, so they shut her up. Let's see if I can find a statement on this on the Florida Department of Law Enforcement website. Do they have any news here? Nope. January 15th is the last thing. So here's another article about this confusing story. Rebecca Jones, data scientist Rebecca Jones, facing arrest, turns herself into Florida authorities. She is charged with 1 count of offenses against users of computers, computer systems, computer networks, and electronic devices. It's a felony. She says she lost her job after refusing requests to manipulate data to suggest Florida was ready to ease coronavirus restrictions. She says she's being punished for continuing to speak out about how Governor DeSantis is handling COVID. The arrest warrant obtained by NPR alleges Jones gained unauthorized access to state health department software on November 10th and set a mass. So the arrest warrant does say this. The arrest warrant does, according to NPR, says that she did send this mass text to employees reading, "It's time to speak up before 17,000 people are dead. You know this is wrong. You don't have to be part of this. Be a hero. Speak up before it's too late." But did they charge her for sending this message? It sounds like they haven't charged her for it. The warrant also alleges Jones downloaded and saved health department data. Maybe the warrant, maybe part of the warrant, maybe part of the charge is her accessing the system to send this message. I don't know. I don't have the warrant. I'd like to see the warrant. She is facing a third-degree felony charge. I haven't seen the warrant posted anywhere. Flatfoot said we should see the warrant. Yeah, I'm interested, like, does the warrant, is part of her being charged that she sent this message or not? All right, anyways, where'd it go? Here it is. Kimberly says, is the warrant public record? I don't know to what degree it's been made public yet. I don't know, but I haven't seen it anywhere. Misha, yes, she did turn herself in. She turned herself in. Dizzy says, can you see the warrant online? I haven't seen it. Some newspapers have said they've obtained it, but I have not seen it myself. So basically, it's like she says they're just targeting her and she did nothing wrong. The state says that she did do something wrong. I don't know, see, Michelle Sparks. I don't believe, a lot of times you can find arrest records, but not, you can't. I've tried in different places to search for warrants and had a hard time searching for them. One of our viewers, like this, Darren, said CNN had a good article about her. Fired board of data science, Rebecca Jones, turns herself into jail and tests positive. Oh, she tested positive for COVID? I didn't know that. Rebecca Jones tested positive for COVID. Wearing a mask, she told reporters outside the jail she had just tested positive for COVID. Huh. All right. Well, best wishes to her with recovering. And I hope she doesn't get sick. All right, it's a confusing story. Is she just being targeted, or did she do this thing that they would have been, charging somebody for anyway? That I do not know. I just don't know. I have no idea. Jennifer Ferry says, such an involved story. Peckerman says, wait for more info on this story. It's coming. I assume there'll be more info on it. Shaggy thinks DeSantis is trying to silence a witness. Christy Horton says she hacked into the system after she left her job, so even if it was well-intentioned, she broke the law. John Carter says warrants are held in the courts, usually not released. Sometimes you see them published. Sometimes you can find them. But I don't ever see them search. I don't know that I've ever searched for one and did a website search on a court system and found it. Sometimes law enforcement departments will actually release criminal complaints. They'll actually release them to the press. Okay, we're going to continue here covering some other stuff. Oh, by the way, the White House, Scott McFarlane posted this, the White House invite for Trump farewell at Joint Base Andrews on January 20th. Guests are asked to arrive at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. on Wednesday and wear a mask, and invitees can bring 5 guests. 6 a.m. is pretty early. By the way, Colligan Craft says they don't trust Florida at all. Six a.m. History Underfoot says he needs to land in Florida by noon. Noon is when he stops being president. Angel Shark says too early. Soulful Music says free pillow for all attendees. Hey, I owe a quick thank you to David Farden. Thank you so much, David Farden, for your support. I really appreciate that, David. Thank you, David Farden. Also, big thank you to Andre Vandal, or Vandal. Andre Vandal. Thank you, Andre, so much for your support. That's very kind of you. Much appreciated. Thank you both. 6 a.m. is so early. I mean, I saw an article today. I saw a post where I think Anthony Scaramucci was saying he thought, yeah, here it is. He was saying he thought that like they were having a hard time getting people there. That's why they invited him. I mean, I think they could be having a hard time getting people because it's 6 a.m. Caitlin Collins says, Anthony Scaramucci says he was invited to President Trump's farewell ceremony Wednesday, which he takes as a sign the White House is desperate to bulk up the guest list. Trust me, that had to be a mass email if one of them got sent to me, he tells Inside Edition. And he said he's not going. But the thing is also, it's 6 a.m. 6 a.m. There might be people who would go if it weren't 6 a.m. Misha says, too early for us. Actually, if it all got done by like 7 a.m., I might be able to stay up that late. But I think it doesn't actually start until, after that. It'll take a little while. Okay, let's hang on one second here. Hang on one second here. Hey, thank you to Brett Lowings from Australia. That's very kind of you. Thank you, Brett, and thanks for the sticker. The goal sticker, Brett. Much appreciated. Thank you, Brett. That's very nice of you. Thank you. We're going to cover some more news here. But before we do that, I just need to take a 1-minute break. Give me 1 minute. I'll be right back, and we will continue our live coverage in 1 minute. All right, we're back. We are back. There's another story I wanted to talk about. But first, we got to say thanks to our moderators. Let's give it up for the mods. They are volunteers. They're awesome. They're keeping the chats troll-free. Thank you, moderators. Angel Shark is there. Thank you, Angel Shark. Mark Helton, Sarah Joy. Nightbot is helping out in the chat as well. Nightbot is there. Thank you. Also, Misha and Texas Legends Brian are there in our Periscope chat. We have our Twitch moderators too, and our Facebook mods. We got Idaho Star, Maddie, Mags, and Tariag. Thanks for helping out there. And also Roxanne Betke. And Bud Green. Thank you. Roxanne says, I know the moving truck went to Mar-a-Lago. I saw a report about that today. I didn't really read it. Several large moving trucks arrived at Mar-a-Lago this morning. That's from Kyle Griffin. Caitlin Collins says, moving trucks from a DC-based company were seen at Mar-a-Lago today. So, WPTV moving trucks arrive at President Trump's Mar-a-Lago Club on Palm Beach. Several large moving trucks arrived at President Trump's Mar-a-Lago Club in Palm Beach, sparking speculation he'll move to South Florida once he leaves office. Is he moving into the club? Is that what's happening? Is he going to live at the club? Is that why the moving trucks are going to the club? This I don't know. What do you think about this? Maybe you probably know more than me. Will he temporarily move into the club? Like why are they showing up at the club? Oh, by the way, hey, Brett Lowings, that's very kind of you. Another donation from Brett Lowings. Thank you, Brett. And thanks for the sticker too. Brett, all the way from Australia. Thank you, Brett. Much appreciated, Brett. Thank you. And also Daniel Boberson, who says, such a well-moderated chat room. It is because of the moderators. Thank you, Daniel, for your support. Very kind of you. And thanks for shouting out the mods. Lou thinks he is moving into Mar-a-Lago. Jan says he owns other properties nearby. So, but why is it stopping there? Is it picking stuff up there? History Underfoot says Mar-a-Lago isn't zoned for residential living. Lou Sykes said, I thought I'd heard he can't live at the club any longer. Sharon says he can't for more than 2 weeks. Misha says it's a yes, no, not temporary unless they buy a new home, but Mar-a-Lago used to be their home. Goddard's Journal says he sent all the White House booty there. Okay, Bloomberg 4 days ago, Bloomberg said Trump plans to live at Mar-a-Lago, employ some current aides. Some Palm Beach residents don't want him as permanent neighbor. This is 4 days ago. Trump plans to fly to his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. He intends to live at the Palm Beach resort, though some of his future neighbors are trying to stop him. A lawyer representing several of his neighbors has demanded that Palm Beach declare the outgoing president can't live at Mar-a-Lago, citing an agreement he made with the city in the early 1990s when he converted the property from a private residence to a public club, according to the Washington Post. So far, the city is not known to have done anything that would prevent Trump from living there. All right, well. As of 4 days ago, this report says he's going to live there. Yeah, I don't know if there's zoning stuff with him living there. That's what that article says. Misha says that must be new. Misha says 88, 89, that was their residence. Read Israel says he received lots of tax credits when local authorities settled on approving it as a club, not as a hotel as they feared. Interesting. Look Nerd says he wants to live there but might not be able to because of a contract issue. Oh, by the way, Read Israel had a comment on the Rebecca Jones story. Read Israel said, Rebecca, so she takes the fall for whoever her source is who provided her the data, or she outs her source. Do you mean the data she downloaded, or is this like the data she got when she was claiming that they were massaging the numbers? I'm sorry, I just saw this reader right now. I know you sent it like 20 minutes ago. Feel free to write me again on Twitter and clarify. I'm not going to go back and get into that story now, though. There's too much data, too much details. Smark asks if we're going to cover the pardons. Yeah, I'm guessing if tomorrow, as is anticipated, President Trump lists a big list of pardons, I assume we'll come on the air and cover that, probably on Agenda Free TV. I want to talk about, a story I haven't seen covered much, but I want to talk about it, is, hang on one second here. Couple things. I want to talk about Manaus. Manaus is in Brazil, and they've been it's this city in Brazil, and they've been having this huge issue there because they're running out of oxygen. Like the hospitals don't have oxygen to give to the COVID patients. There's been some really bad reports from Manaus. Now, this was 4 days ago, but I was seeing some reports last night about it. BBC, Brazil hospitals run out of oxygen for virus patients. Hospitals in the Brazilian city of Manaus have reached breaking point while treating COVID patients amid reports of severe oxygen shortages and desperate staff. The city in Amazonas state has seen a surge of deaths and infections. Health professionals quoted by local media warned many people could die due to lack of supplies and assistance. Jessim Orellana from the Fiocruz Amazonia Scientific Investigation Institute told the AFP news agency some hospitals in Manaus had run out of oxygen, with some centers becoming a type of suffocation chamber for the patients. The researcher told Brazilian media she had received reports from the front line of dramatic scenes playing out in some hospitals. Reports in the daily Folha de Sao Paulo newspaper described desperate staff having to try and keep patients alive through manual ventilation. In a widely shared video from the region, a female medical worker asked the internet for help. We're in an awful state. Oxygen has simply run out across the whole unit today. There is no oxygen and lots of people are dying, she says in the clip. If anyone has any oxygen, please bring it to the clinic. There are so many people dying. A local health secretary said the state needed 3 times the amount of oxygen it can produce locally and appealed for help. Brazil's vice president shared images on Twitter of the Air Force transporting hospital supplies, including oxygen cylinders and stretchers. I guess that's this. Yeah, Denise Horton says that's horrific. Yeah, I've been seeing some like videos from there too. It's bad there. That's Manaus. About 2 million people live in Manaus. Here's another report, NBC News. Brazil's Amazonas state running out of oxygen. A truck is loaded with oxygen to fill the hospitals after it arrived on a Brazilian Air Force airplane on January 15th. The Brazilian state of Amazonas is running out of oxygen during a renewed surge in COVID deaths, its government said on Thursday, with media reporting that people on respirators were dying of suffocation in hospitals. They took my father off the oxygen, Raisa Floriano said outside a hospital in Manaus, where people protested that relatives suffering serious cases of COVID were being unhooked from ventilators for lack of oxygen. Sobbing, Floriano said she was looking for an oxygen cylinder to save her 73-year-old father, Alfonso. Public health experts gave dramatic accounts of people dying of COVID in ICUs with no oxygen. We read you a quote from this person before. Researcher Jessim Orellana said the oxygen ran out and the hospitals have turned into suffocation chambers. Patients who managed to survive could suffer permanent brain damage. Oh, it's a he. Anyways, it's really bad. So, Diana L. says Brazil has a variant like South Africa. I don't know what the current situation is there with the variant thing. The last article, I think something said something about it. Let's see. I'm not seeing a lot of stuff. I mean, this is from CBC. That's a video. Hang on. Let's see if this is an article from today, from New York Times. Brazil starts vaccinations amid rising COVID cases and new variants. Brazil battles 2 worrisome new variants of the virus, at least one of which is more contagious and could be helping drive the country's recent surge of cases. Is that one of the ones? Is that the same one as the South Africa or UK one? I'm not sure. The potential menace of the new variants became clear last week as patients in the northern state of Amazonas asphyxiated to death because hospitals ran out of oxygen amid a sharp rise in critically ill patients. Prosecutors investigating the calamity said at least 16 patients had died. Brazilian scientists say the resurgence of the virus may result in 2 new variants they discovered in Brazil and publicly disclosed in the last month. The one in Amazonas contains a mutation that has been linked with higher contagiousness, and both variants have another mutation that may weaken the efficiency of vaccines. The 2 mutated viruses have slipped the country's borders and turned up in other parts of the world, with the latest discovery occurring in Japan. While virus mutations are common, experts say hard-hit countries like Brazil provide fertile ground for new variants that could hamper the global response. Despite a rise in cases, bars and restaurants are doing brisk business in Brazil, and mask wearing is spotty. This expert says the drastic surge of cases in Manaus, the capital of Amazonas, suggests the new strain there is likely more contagious. I am not someone who believes in coincidences, he said. Our new variant was found in Manaus, and now cases are booming. It's improbable that there isn't a correlation between one thing and the other. Brazilian scientists say they are working around the clock to have a more complete picture of the prevalence of new variants, but labs have limited capacity to sequence virus genomes compared to their counterparts in countries like the US and Britain. Reports of the variants in Brazil have raised alarm abroad. Officials in Japan reported last week they had diagnosed cases of the new Brazil variant in 4 passengers who arrived in Tokyo after traveling from Manaus. Citing concerns over the new Brazilian variants, Britain last week banned flights from Latin America and Portugal. Italy later suspended its few remaining flights to Brazil. That's not good. More variants. Worker Bee says, I'm so done with this. Willow says Brazil's stock market is cray-cray right now. What's the cray-cray? 6 months. Like going up? That's the last month in Brazil's stock market. Well, looks like it went up about 10%. This isn't to scale, though. It's not really a good graph. One month. But see, it's not to scale. This is 0 to 117, and this is 117 to 123. View full chart. How do I unscale it? I don't know. Denise Horton says, Brazil variant now? Oh man, I'll be up half the night researching this. Mira, it looks like from the article we just read that there's 1 or more new Brazil variants. Wave Shaper says, I'll be on the first shuttle to Mars. Elon promised by 2026. Lou Hastings says, so why would Trump administration want to open travel from Brazil? See, I'm confused about this. Birdie sent me this article. Our viewer, Birdie222. This is from France 24, which is a reliable source. But overwhelmed by oxygen. Brazilian state overwhelmed by COVID despite a ferocious first. Short of oxygen, Brazilian state overwhelmed by COVID despite ferocious first wave. Now in here it says so many were infected in Manaus during the first wave, 76% according to a recent study. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if 76% of the city of Manaus got the virus in the first wave. That some scientists thought this city of 2 million people might have been approaching herd immunity, but that projection has proved well wide of the mark. So I don't know if really 76% of the people had it before and there's a bunch of people getting reinfected or not. I'm not sure. Eric Feigl-Ding, he has a thread on this. He posts a lot of COVID stuff. He said the Brazil-Manaus epidemic is getting epically worse, and many scientists suspect it might be because of the new Brazil P1 variant, which has many multiple mutations. He says there are 2 new Brazil variants here that are, I mean, there's a lot of different variants, but these are the ones of particular concern. Yeah, Eric Feigl-Ding says many are now saying reinfection with this variant is possible if high immune escape from previous antibodies. So there's this question of, are people in Brazil getting it again because their initial immunity doesn't work on this, from having it once doesn't work on this new strain? I don't know. But that's certainly a good question. Jan Harker says, so maybe the concept of herd immunity is out the window. Well, it's certainly a problem if new strains can develop faster. Like if you get a cold, you develop immunity to that cold. To what I believe now, colds are colds all caused by, is it like rhinoviruses? What's the type of virus? What's causing my cold? WebMD. Rhinovirus, coronavirus. There's coronavirus types that cause colds, and RSV and parainfluenza. So there's different virus. There are more than 200 viruses that can give you a cold, according to WebMD. So if you get a cold, I believe you get immunity to that one virus, but there's plenty of different viruses that can give you a cold. So it's not good. What you're hoping is that the hope is that if you get coronavirus, you get immunity not just from the specific strain you got, but from other strains, as well. It would not be good if you get the virus, then 6 months later there's a bunch of new strains and you're not immune to those, right? Now there hasn't been any evidence yet that I've seen that one of these new strains is reinfecting a lot of people who had initially gotten a different variant, last year or something. But that would certainly be a huge problem if that's the case. If you get a cold once, you're not immune from all colds. You're immune from like the particular virus that caused that cold. Diana L. says they are worried it has immune escape. And we were talking about this with the South Africa variant too. There are worries about that one too. Hebcat Gary says still waiting on that cold vaccine. I don't know. I feel like, when we first started covering the virus, people just ignored it, right? We covered for a couple of months and a lot of the world just wasn't paying attention. And that was a problem. That was like a big gaping hole in people's knowledge about and awareness of an approach to the virus. Then after that, the big mistake people made is a lot of people just thought it would be a couple months. I know in the U.S., most people were acting like, and including politicians of both parties, were acting like it was going to be a couple months. And that was just clearly not the case. We were talking about this months ago, but they were acting like that for whatever reason. Now I think the big mistake people are making is they're not adequately considering the possibility of I think people are basically assuming we're going to give everybody the vaccine once and that'll be the end of it. And that's very likely not how it works. One, because the vaccine itself very well might only give a limited duration of immunity. Maybe they give you the vaccine and it works for 2 years or something, right? That's one reason. And two is it's possible that these new strains, that there are these new strains, that some of these new strains, the vaccine isn't going to work very well on. And then what happens? And I just think these are very realistic possibilities. I mean, even if the vaccine works for 2 years, so you're going to have to revaccinate. It's a big deal if you have to revaccinate everybody every 2 years. But that's just, it could be worse. So just in terms of, things getting back to normal, I don't know. I think people are just assuming everybody's going to get the vaccine, it's going to be fine, and it doesn't look like it's going to be that way. Hey, thank you, Ricky Markham, for your support. Ricky says there's a new strain discovered in California. Yeah, we talked about it a couple of days ago. I mean, it's not, new strains happen all the time. Now, there's a strain in California we talked about a couple of days ago where it's occurring a bunch in a bunch of outbreaks. So there's a concern, well, since we're seeing this strain a lot, does that mean it's spreading faster? But it's being looked into. So there's no evidence yet that the California strain is like, if it's the same, if it's not more lethal and it spreads at the same speeds, then it's really not a big, it's like not a big deal that there's a new strain. So the big question is, with any of these new strains, are they more lethal? Are they spreading faster? The California one, it's not clear. The one we read about a couple days ago. Thank you, Ricky, for your support. I appreciate that. Miss Misha says, my friends are idiots. They all got COVID in March, April, so now they're out partying and being wild. I hope they're still immune. But just because you've had it doesn't mean you can't. Can't they still spread it? Well, first of all, you can, in theory, some people have gotten reinfected. You can get reinfected. It hasn't happened that much, but you can get reinfected. Medical, MIT Medical. Can someone who has recovered from COVID still spread it to others? From what we know of other viruses, most experts think it's likely that most people who recover from COVID have some level of immunity for some period of time, but we don't know how much immunity they have or how long it lasts. In a recent study of a different type of coronavirus, the common cold, found people were often reinfected within 12 months. Excuse me. Now, what they say here is there's likely much more cases of reinfection than of the confirmed ones. Why? Because each case of reinfection requires genetic proof that the virus was sufficiently different the second time. Genomic sequencing of this type requires viral samples from both PCR tests. It requires time, money, and other resources. As a result, the number of confirmed reinfections is far lower than the More than 2,000 suspected cases have been reported to date. So basically what they're saying is, for a confirmed reinfection, you have to figure out, you have to figure out what exact strain you got both times. And in a lot of cases, that kind of testing is just not going to be done. Also, immunologists usually expect a second infection with the same virus to be milder than the first. If that holds true for most reinfections with this coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2 virus, many reinfected individuals could remain asymptomatic and untested, but very much capable of transmitting the virus to others. So basically what they're saying is, even if you've had it, first of all, it's possible you can get it again. Second of all, it's certainly possible that even if you've had it, you can be giving it to others. Jennifer Tower sent me this article from Shara Zhang in The Atlantic, a troubling new pattern among the variants. The most concerning versions of the virus are not simply mutating, they're mutating in similar ways. 3 distinct versions of the virus seem to have independently converged on some of the same mutations from the UK, South Africa, and Brazil. A mutation is blah, 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 blah. The fact that these mutations have popped up not 1, not 2, but now 3 times we know of in variants with unusual behavior suggests they may confer an evolutionary advantage to the virus. All 3 variants seem to be becoming more common, and all 3 are potentially more transmissible. You can read this. This has a bunch of detail in it. I think the general argument here is that because the different strains, some of these different strains have similar features, that suggests that maybe those features give those strains an evolutionary advantage. Scientists are scrambling to figure out if and how these mutations might give the viruses an edge. Maybe they'll get a lot better at producing the vaccines and coming out with more of them, so more people can get them faster. Somebody just sent me this. We talked about this last night. I don't want to get into it in detail, but I do want to mention it. Blank sent me this. I've seen this story misrepresented a lot. It is not the case that all the Moderna vaccine has been halted. It is not the case that there's some new evidence that the Moderna vaccine is harmful for people. What happened is, we read the story last night. The story we read last night said in California, there were fewer than 10 cases of a severe allergic reaction to the Moderna vaccine at one test site, and they're concerned over one particular batch of Moderna vaccine. Now, that batch contains about 300,000 or so doses, I believe, but the concern is not over all Moderna vaccine. So perhaps there's an issue with this batch. And look, it says after several people, this is from KTLA, had apparent allergic reactions at one clinic, state health officials told providers across the state to pause administering doses from one COVID vaccine lot. The move was made out of an extreme abundance of caution. A higher than usual number of possible allergic reactions, higher than usual, was reported with a specific lot at one clinic. Fewer than 10 people needed medical attention over 24 hours. So again, it's important with these headlines to read them carefully and not draw the wrong conclusion and read the details. Some people yesterday were saying in the chat room, they've stopped giving the Moderna vaccine. Just a general statement, which is not the case. Kaylee N says probably wasn't stored properly. I don't know. But the point here also is that it said more than usual. The point is, look, there are going to be allergic, this has been said from the beginning, that some people will have severe allergic reactions to the Moderna vaccine and the other vaccines. The idea is that the benefit to people generally is much greater than the cost. So one of the costs being that you could have people have severe allergic reactions, right? So the problem is I guess at this one location, they were getting a bunch of people, more than the usual number, having these severe allergic reactions. They will look into it. Prairie Dawn says, gotta read past the headline. And the article we read last night said that there haven't been other reports. Everybody's saying, the articles all say this one clinic. So how about the other clinics that used it? I guess they haven't reported anything abnormal. Look, officials said the state has not been notified of any other cluster or individual events related to this lot. This is from News 10. Ross Armour says not seeing evidence that long after a person recovers, they are still a danger to the unvaccinated. Viral loads are likely too low and they are no longer shedding enough of the virus CDC website. I haven't seen that. Ross, can you send me the link? So maybe that's true. Again, I just showed you the article from MIT, that MIT, what was it, MIT Health or something like that, that said it's possible. I mean, people can get reinfected. So people can get reinfected. We know that. There's been confirmed case of people getting reinfected. Perhaps people who had it already are less likely to spread it to other people, but if it's certainly possible for them to if they can get reinfected themselves. And also, as that article said, it's not clear how long immunity lasts when you first get it. Also, here's another thing people keep saying that's wrong. So one of our viewers says 30 deaths in Norway old age homes from Pfizer vaccine. No, the story is not that the deaths were from the vaccine. I keep seeing it and again. You got to read the story. You need to be more precise. This is how wrong ideas spread, when people look at a headline and they're not precise with their language. And what the story was, because we talked about this at length, the story was that there were a number of people in Norway, 80 or over, I believe many or all with very severe illnesses, who had been given the vaccine and died a short time later. And what the government of Norway said happened is they believed they had investigated 13 of the deaths, and they said what they thought was happening is that old and frail people were not able to handle the normal side effects from the vaccine. They thought that might be happening, that normal side effects from the vaccine were not able to be handled by the people. So if you just say 30 people in Norway died from the vaccine, well, that makes it sound like there's like something is wrong with the vaccine, something new is wrong with it, something unanticipated is wrong with it. And I guess if people who are really old and frail and can't, and by the way, I think they said like things like fever, like having a fever might have been too much from people, or nausea. So, on the one hand, I guess you could say if somebody very, very, very old and ill takes the vaccine and they can't handle the fever that they get from it, I guess in a sense you could say, okay, they died from the vaccine, but it's misleading to just say 30 people in Norway died from the vaccine. It's just a misleading thing, because the average person will hear that and say, what? They're giving the vaccine to people and just killing people? Well, no. What the government said is they said, given the deaths they investigated, which were all people 80 and older, and they said old and frail people, very ill people, this is what was happening. They said they were not in a condition to be able to deal with the normal expected side effects like fever and nausea. But when you're not precise with your reading and you don't read the story, and instead of focusing on what the story says, you just immediately jump to a conclusion, then you spread it around social media. That's how people get wrong ideas about how things work. And that kind of stuff is really bad. Because and then that's what happened. Then you end up. We were reading a story the other night where there was a story about how like somebody who worked in the health. I think somebody maybe worked at one of the unions for healthcare workers in this country was saying like about half of them were refusing to take it, and they were saying that like that there were these, and the person was blaming that these rumors flying around about affecting people's long-term fertility, which is just a rumor. There's been no evidence suggesting that the vaccines affect people's long-term fertility. But when you have people just spreading around misinformation, when they just hear something and they repeat it, or they just hear something one way and they repeat it a different way, that has harmful effects. You need to be precise. If you want to be a good member of society, don't spread around stuff that you haven't looked at yourself and you're not sure of, and you haven't done the reading about, and you haven't been careful about, and you're just throwing around these claims. That's how people get misinformation, and it's bad for everyone. So it upsets me when I see it, and I see it again and again and again. It's the same stories. 30 people died from the virus in Norway. 30 people died in Norway from the vaccine. They've stopped giving the Moderna vaccine in California. Well, no, look at the actual details of the story. And it's a lot less scary than your one-line misleading summary of it. You have the responsibility yourself to not spread around misinformation. I've seen a bunch of articles like this. There's a lot of articles like this. Here's one from the New York Post 2 weeks ago. Alarming number of U.S. healthcare workers are refusing vaccine. But we read one of the articles we read talked about somebody who worked with the healthcare workers saying that there were rumors, they were worried about rumors about it affecting your fertility. Here, look. I mean, this is an article from December. Fears prompt some medical workers to balk at getting the vaccine. And it says here, down here, it says, some younger medical workers are reluctant because of widespread but unfounded rumors about possible side effects such as infertility. By the way, thanks to Robin Neal for your support. I really appreciate it. Robin Neal, thank you. And thanks, Robin, for shouting out the mods. Diana L. says this whole country is a library of misinformation. The thing is, misinformation, though, implies, I think you're intentionally spreading it falsely. I think a lot of people are not intentionally spreading it around. They're just not careful about what they're reading. So a lot of people, they don't bother to read the article, or they don't bother to double check that they're not misreading the headline, and they just they read one thing and then they start spreading around something that sounds sort of similar but means something very different. Dawn says we do not know long-term effects of vaccine. It is true that it is not known exactly what the long-term effects will be, but at the same time, I think if there was good reason to expect long-term negative effects, then scientists wouldn't be rushing to say people should take it and approving it in different countries. If it was just a crapshoot that there'd be long-term terrible effects, I don't think, for example, the panel of scientists that advises the CDC would have voted to give it to people. North Down South says, so healthcare workers aren't accepting the science. It seems like some of them are not. Ross Armour sent me this article, when you can be around others after you had or likely have had COVID-19. Well, but I think this is about I don't know that this addresses the issue we were talking about. You can be around others after 10 days symptoms first appeared. Okay, fine. Cases of reinfection have been reported but are rare. In general, reinfection means a person was infected, got once, recovered, and then later became infected again. Some reinfections are special. I mean, where's the part here? I don't see anything in here that says it says when you can be around others, right? But they're saying be around others versus be isolated. I don't think they mean like there's no chance of you giving it to anyone else. They're saying be around others as opposed to where you would be if you actively were suffering from the virus. But I don't see anything about, I mean, this article that I see isn't saying like, well, it's not saying there's no risk that you could give it to others if you had it 6 months ago. I think when it says be around others, it means be around others in the same sense that anyone could be around others, including people who haven't had the virus yet. I don't think it's saying when you can be around others because there's literally no chance of you giving it to anyone anymore, ever. I think it's using be around others in the sense of, oh, the same way somebody who hadn't had it yet. Yeah, again, Ross, when they say, when they say be around others, I think they mean be around others as opposed to you have the virus, you're suffering from it, you're sitting in your home and no one can be near you, right? So they would say you can be around others to somebody who had never had the virus yet. That doesn't mean that you can't give somebody the virus. If you've never had the virus, you can be giving it to somebody because you can have it and not know you have it. So again, I think you're misreading be around others. I think you're misreading this as telling you, you can now be within 1 inch of other people for the rest of your life and you can, or for the next year and you can never give it to them again. No, I think by be around others, they mean as opposed to where you should be if you're like actively sick with the virus. I don't think the article says what you think it does. Now, maybe they should clarify the article. Maybe they should clarify the other article. Also, the article, literally, the article says you can get reinfected. So they are already saying in that page, they're saying you can get reinfected. So clearly, they're admitting the possibility that you could give it to somebody else if you can get reinfected with it. But maybe they should have made it more clear on that page what be around others meant. In what sense be around others. I have to read the whole page. I'm not going to go through the whole page again, but anyways. The page itself says you can get reinfected. Hey, thank you, F-Stop, for the super hearts. I appreciate that. Thank you. Let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to bring up today. Marjorie Simmons sent me this. Dominion Voting Systems is threatening to sue Mike Lindell, MyPillow CEO, over false claims. Officials with Dominion Voting Systems have sent Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow, a legal letter warning of pending litigation over his baseless claims of widespread fraud involving their machines. Litigation regarding these issues is imminent, the letter said. In a brief telephone interview with the New York Times, Mr. Lindell said he welcomed a lawsuit from Dominion. I would really welcome them to sue me because I have all the evidence against them, he said. We'll see what happens. Hey, by the way, if you want to know when we're coming on the air with live news coverage on this channel, also Agenda Free, well, if you're on YouTube, you're watching Agenda Free TV too. On the rest of the platforms, you're watching Agenda Free TV. I have 2 YouTube news channels, this and Agenda Free TV. But if you want to know when I'm coming on there to cover live breaking news, the best way to do that is to get the Discord notifications. There's a Discord you can sign up for, the Discord notification system, and that gives you, it's for free, it's free, and that gives you the best notifications when I'm coming on the air. We can come on the air at all times, depending on when the news happens. So it's very easy to sign up. The link is at the bottom of the YouTube video description, and also the moderators can post that link as well. So check out the Discord notifications. Sign up for Discord notifications at the Discord link. That's what I'm trying to say. See, Nightbot already posted it. Josh Harmon talks about the vaccine and says, I think it will be like the flu shot. We will have to get a new one every year. I am in no way saying that COVID is nothing but the flu. I fully believe in vaccines. Now, I will say this, if you have to get a new one every year, that's going to be a huge deal. To get everybody the vaccine once a year, every year, is like a big doing. That will be a big doing. What percentage of people take, how many people get the flu vaccine? How many people get flu vaccine every year? During the 2018-2019 flu season, 49.2% of people ages 6 months and older got a flu vaccine. That's actually more than I thought. So about half of people 6 months and older get the flu vaccine. Mark Starkiller says, I hope we will not need it every year. I always get one. McMomface says there's been some worry over this needing updated vaccine since there's been some mutations in the spike protein that's targeted. All right, hang on here. Oh, Melissa Gaffney is moderating too. Thank you for letting me know, Roxanne, that Melissa Gaffney's been moderating in Facebook too. Candice Fisher McLean thinks the COVID vaccine is going to be just like the flu vaccine. It will be voluntary and a certain percentage will decide to get it and some will decide to not get it. All right. I'm going to do one last check here for updates. Here, look. This is a good update about the Norway thing. What to know about vaccine-linked deaths allergies. Norway has reported deaths among elderly people with serious underlying health conditions following admission of the Pfizer vaccine, possibly linked to the normal side effects of fever, headache, pain, and pain at the site of the injection. 33 deaths were reported in mid-January among some 42,000 people given the Pfizer vaccine in Norway, where authorities have prioritized the immunization of nursing home residents. Those who died were all in the 75 years plus bracket. Exact ages weren't given for privacy reasons, and included terminally ill patients anticipated to have only weeks or months to live. So some of the people who died were already supposed to only live weeks or months. All days that occur within a few days of vaccination are carefully assessed. Health authorities in Norway say there's no evidence of a direct link between the 33 cases and the vaccine they received. An average of 400 people die each week in nursing homes and long-term care facilities. The chief physician of the Norwegian Medicines Agency says he can't rule out that common adverse reactions to the vaccine, such as fever and nausea, may be potentially life-threatening in patients with severe underlying health problems. So they don't even know that these people died of the side effects. There's again no evidence of a direct link between the 33 cases and the vaccine they received, but the government believes this government official said the chief physician for Norwegian Medicines Agency said they can't rule out that common adverse reactions to the vaccine, such as fever and nausea, may be potentially life-threatening in patients with severe underlying health problems. The deaths in Norway were associated with fever, nausea, and diarrhea, relatively common short-lived effects that some people can experience after almost any vaccination, according to information relayed by Australia's Therapeutics Administration, who's been working with the European Medicines Agency, which includes Norway. The reactions aren't expected to be of significance in the vast majority of people. Millions of doses of the Pfizer vaccine have been administered in the US, UK, and some other countries with no deaths reported due to the vaccine. It's possible that common adverse reactions to vaccines that aren't dangerous in fit or younger patients may aggravate underlying disease in the elderly. Okay. So if you want to read more, read that article in Bloomberg. Thanks for your kind words, Trixie. All right, guys. I think we may be getting to that time. Oh, something else you may hear more about soon. I'm not going to really get into it now. Biden to propose 8-year path for citizenship for immigrants. Look, the president can't change immigration policy like this himself. This would need to be something that would be that Congress would have to pass, right? Congress would have to pass a change like this. President-elect Biden plans to unveil a sweeping immigration bill on day one of his administration, hoping to provide an 8-year path to citizenship for an estimated 11 million people living in the U.S. without legal status, a massive reversal from the Trump administration's harsh immigration policies. But the Senate would have to pass it. Does it mention the Senate in here? Biden and even some Republicans have identified immigration as a major issue where the new administration could find common ground with Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell and enough other GOP senators to avoid the stalemate that has vexed administrations of both parties for decades. Under the legislation, those living in the U.S. as of January 1st, 2021, a few weeks ago, without legal status would have a 5-year path to temporary legal status or a green card if they pass background checks, pay taxes, and fulfill other basic requirements. From there, it's a 3-year path to naturalization if they decide to pursue citizenship. Anyways, I'm sure you'll be hearing more about all this stuff. Congress would have to pass a law that the president would sign. So we'll probably talk about that more if they start Congress starts working on it. But I think it might be time, guys. Hold on a second here. I think it might be time, guys, to wrap up this live stream. So I appreciate you joining our stream and watching and commenting, those who commented and sent in comments and questions and sent me news links. So thank you for doing that. And make sure you subscribe so you know when we're coming on the air. On YouTube, we do these kind of shows on Agenda Free TV 2. On the other platforms, it's all on Agenda Free TV. On YouTube, though, we have Agenda Free TV 2 and also Agenda Free TV, which is like the single news stories. So if you like this channel on YouTube, subscribe to Agenda Free TV as well. Also, make sure whenever you subscribe, click the button, click the bell, and choose all notifications. I will post on my Twitter account, @Lookner on Twitter, with news updates. So follow me on Twitter, @Lookner on Twitter. That's where I post breaking news updates when I'm not on the air. Again, I really appreciate you watching and helping out with the news coverage. Also, a big thanks to everybody who donated. That is how I can do my channels, is your support. Your donations are what allows me to do it. So I really appreciate the donations. Thank you. Thank you very much. That includes the Super Hearts, Mark Watts, and the Facebook stars. I think I thanked the people before. Oh, William Bowser, I forgot to thank. William Bowser, thank you, William, for the Facebook stars, and everybody else I thanked earlier. Cecilia Sherrard and Alicia Rivera and everybody else. And if you do want to donate to the channel, you can go to agendafree.tv, agendafree.tv. Big thanks to our moderators. Yay, mods! Thank you, mods. They are awesome. They're all volunteers. Really appreciate the mods. They are the ones who keep it troll-free. Think of what it would be like without them. Oh, you don't want to think about it. It would be so bad. Thank you, mods. We got Sarah Joy and Mark Helton in our YouTube chat room. Angel Shark, thank you. Nightbot, give it up for Nightbot. Our new mod, Nightbot. Hey, Misha. Thank you, Misha. Thanks, by the way, for your Eddie Camacho, for your kind words. Eddie says, learned about COVID right here in February. Thank you, Misha, for moderating. Thank you, Texas Legends Brian, for moderating in our Periscope chat. Roxanne Betke. Melissa Gaffney. Bud. We're all... Bud Green in our Facebook chat. Thanks for moderating there. And also our Twitch moderators. Thank you to them. Idaho Star, Maddie Maggs, Tariag. Thank you, moderators. If anybody's interested, hang on one second here. If anybody is interested in being a volunteer moderator, we're looking for moderators on all our platforms now, except for Periscope. because Periscope's going away in the end of March, unfortunately. But on the other platforms, if you're interested in being a volunteer moderator, including YouTube, you can ask the mods for more information, and they'll tell you how to get more information on that. That'd be awesome. We can always use more mods. So thank you, including YouTube. Hey, thank you, Read Israel. Thanks so much, Read Israel, for your support and the mic drop sticker. Thank you, Read Israel. Okay. What else am I going to mention? Hang on one second here. Hang on one second. Also, Agenda Free TV on Twitter. In case you didn't know, Agenda Free TV is on Twitter. And I always post about the streams before we go on the air. See, Agenda Free TV. So follow Agenda Free TV on Twitter. Yeah, we're going to do, Madison G will do a Periscope final broadcast, I'm sure, when we get into March. All right. Hey, I want to say thanks to all of our viewers for watching. Thank you to our Twitch viewers, Boogsy. Thank you. Moper, Bertie. No, we got to thank Nightbot, Bertie. Got to thank Nightbot. No, Maddie Mags, I don't know when we're doing inauguration coverage. I got to figure it out. Not sure yet. Not sure yet. I'll let you know if I figure it out. Oh, Chris Houlihan likes the Amazon shirts. Yeah, we have some merch shirts on Amazon and TeePublic. If you're wondering about the Amazon ones, you can just go to Amazon and search for Agenda Free TV. You'll see some shirts like this. Buy shirts on Amazon. You can buy mugs on Zazzle, Zazzle.com. Zazzle.com. That's where the mugs are, Zazzle. And on TeePublic, there's a bunch of merch there. TeePublic. Oh, thank you, Mischief Queen. Mischief Queen. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. And thanks for thanking the mods, Mischief Queen. Thank you. All right. Thank you to our viewers. Duckzor, thanks for watching. Magua, Cornhusker, Yang Chat. These are viewers watching on Twitch. Ellieborn, C Swigum, TH059, and our other Twitch viewers. Thank you for watching there. Thanks to our Facebook viewers too. Thank you, Facebook viewers. Gretchen Elizabeth, Barry Weil, Roxanne, thanks again for modding. Craig Richardson, Pamela Beck, thanks again, Bud. John W. Harvey, thank you. Joshua Harmon, Candace Fisher McLean, Andy Thomas, Jeff Williams. All right, and all other Facebook viewers, thank you. Hey, Goffberg, thanks for shouting out the moderators. Thank you. Goffberg, thanks for watching in Periscope. Lou Syke, Edie Camacho, Tanya Murray. North Down South, Trixie, Still Kicking. Martin, I heard Parler might be back online with some Russian provider. I need to do some more research on that. I'll check it out. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it today. And Shalom Revelator, and Space Force Captain, and our other viewers in Periscope. Thanks for watching there. And thanks to our YouTube viewers. Thank you, Starfire, Drew Pratt, Anon again, VF Star, Elizabeth G, Stuart Clark, Hark, Paula Faust, Jeff Ha, Kay Lien, Rita's Real, Ravenwood, Strange Reverend, Starfire, Chicken Man, Julie Aiken, Alibaba, Megan Mills, Kimmy Rose, Upstate Zach, Carol Reed, Mr. Showtime, Lisa Renee, Brock 82, Willow, Ava Rivers Libby. I don't know what I'm going to do about the inauguration. I got to figure it out, David. I got to figure it out. I haven't figured it out yet, what inauguration coverage is going to be. I just haven't figured it out. Frisco Williams, History Underfoot, Mark Warling, Haba Hanguk, Seize the Day, Joanne M., and all our other viewers. Thank you. Tony Del Monte. Thank you, Tony, for watching. Sunshine in Arizona, thank you for watching. All right, guys, it is time. It's time to wrap it up. Time to wrap it up. So thanks for watching our live news coverage today. I'm sure we will have news coverage more soon. If there's big news tonight, we'll come back on the air. And don't forget, I do have a personal channel where I do live streams, sometimes late at night. That's called Lookner. That's on YouTube. It's only on YouTube, Lookner. Check that out for videos I do, not about the news. All right, guys, that's it. I'm wrapping it up. Thank you so much again for watching, and we will certainly have more news coverage for you soon, and I'll post on Twitter if I hear more news tonight. I'm sure I'll be posting on Twitter. And thanks again to the moderators. Much appreciated. And the people who donated, very much appreciated. All right, guys, that's it for now. Thanks for watching our news show today, and we'll see you soon with more live coverage here at Agenda Free TV and Agenda Free TV 2.